Thank you very much, Mr. Schmidt, for this very charming introduction. Quite nicely done. As you already said, we have renowned experts here in this group. I'd like to start with Ms. Susann Garcia Rodriguez on the very right-hand side, Director for Product Management and Delivery, Amadeus, Germany. Welcome to you. Next to her, Ms. Kirsten Feld-Türkis, who is the Executive Director of airtours, a brand of TUI Germany GmbH. Wybcke Meier, Managing Director of Windrose Finest Travel GmbH. Nice that you have joined us. And we'd like to welcome Jasmin Taylor, Managing Director of JT Touristik. Nice to have you, Ms. Taylor. Now, I'd like to start by asking a question, ladies. Customer relationship management, what does that mean to you? Let's maybe start with Ms. Garcia. It's very important to know your customers. This is the first and foremost thing that needs to be done. We need to systemically support this with the IT technologies. We need to transport information about the customer, and this includes social information. We need to succeed in delivering relevant information, relevant data to the customer, and we want to support this. As Amadeus Germany, we have the social media suite where we take relevant data and make it available, and we also think of other possibilities, and we also have other IT solutions, but maybe we can talk about this later. We will do that. Ms. Feld-Türkis, what do you think about customer relationship management? For me, it's an extremely valuable tool, not just with regard to customer relationships, but also for the satisfaction of customers, product development. My customers are a great source for the development and further development of my products, and being in a close dialogue with the customers is a great possibility to do this. And what's also important for me is it's a tool that should be based on a lot of responsibility. In my segment, luxury travels, so high expectation, but it's a topic that you have to deal with in a very responsible way. Ms. Meier, I can only subscribe to what the two previous speakers have already said. For us as a tour operator in the luxury sector, we are the smallest group among the participants here on this panel as far as passenger numbers are concerned. We work with a lot of tailor-made products, but it's important to do that. If you want to do that, it's important to know the wishes of your customers, to really be able to also provide high-quality consulting services and advisory services so that the customers end up getting what it is they want. So we all seem to be having an identical understanding of what CRM means to us. Ms. Taylor, I think it's very important because we all know how much it costs to generate new customers. When you look at it from an economic efficiency point of view, it is very important that the customers that you've already won over need to be maintained. So customer management is important to all of you. How do you use social media? At this year's ITB, everybody seems to be talking about social media, Facebook, etc. How do you use it? How do you efficiently use it in your company, Ms. Meier? Well, now you picked the right one, because we hardly do it at all. Some of you might be surprised by this, but this is due to the fact that Windrose has been existing for 40 years now. We already have some very loyal customers, 5,000 passengers per year who spend about 5,000 euros per trip, and we know our customers very, very well. We need to generate new customers, but we are only beginning now to do this with the use of social media. So far, we've been doing this the classic way. We do have a website and we communicate with the customers, but Facebook and Twitter and these things is something that Windrose so far has not been doing. So I'm the dinosaur on stage here. But you believe that it's necessary for the future. I think every type of communication needs to be offered. This is what customers expect at some point. Will expect this. Our current customers are not doing it. They mostly focus on personal contacts, but as we are so specialized and as we are small, I believe we are the exemption to the rule up here. What about you, Ms. Feld-Türkis? Well, using the classic social media is about the same. We have a lot of customers who want to be dealt with in a discreet way. They don't want to have their names shown on all of the big websites and so on, and they want to be professionally managed. And similar to what Wybcke just said, we are approaching it because at some point it will become indispensable. We have a customer loyalty tool that we introduced about 1.5 years ago, and it was quite interesting to see that it was an expectation of our customers to not register in such a tool, to not leave data on that website, and to not leave their names. And we learned a lot from our customers what they are willing to do, but it's really a gradual process. We don't want to, cross a red line. A lot of companies use the social media to, raise awareness, and customers who go on the internet and go through Facebook, for example, rely on the opinion of other customers. They don't rely the information provided by the company that, posts we have a great cruise or so on. They look at what the comments of the other users are, and then they only approach the company and say, we'd like to book a trip. Have you made that experience as well, that this is the way today's users work? Well, we've made the experience that a lot of recommendations given by former customers lead to new bookings for us, but in our case, it's not Facebook or Twitter or something, but people who have made an experience with us and said, go and contact Windrose. Jasmin, what do you think about it? Well, I've been on Facebook for many years now, personally, because part of my family lives in Dubai, another part lives in Iran, another part in the US, and my friends are spread all over Europe and other continents. And that was one of the reasons why I was more or less forced to, join Facebook. Or I thought it was great when Facebook came up, because it was a good way to, communicate where you're going, post pictures instead of sending emails back and forth. So for that reason, the private reason, it was quite nice. And later that developed into a professional approach. JT Touristik, Wind Tours and Air Tours are all operating in the luxury segment, and we are known for the best price-performance ratio, and it's a very price-sensitive segment that we are active in, and that is why we need any kind of awareness so that customers become aware of our existence. When we started a Facebook site a couple of years ago for the company, we first discussed this for a very long time, because it's also very time-consuming. Maybe a customer posts something at 11 p.m. Saturday or Sunday night, and there will not always be an immediate response. But customers expect immediate responses. They expect 24 hours of attention. So we always have to, come up with somebody who's doing that on the weekend and so on. And you need to have a strategy. You need to have a small social media concept, because otherwise you could be overrun by a lot of comments. So we really make intensive use of it, because we thought, or I thought at that time, customers wanted. The argument against it was, well, now customers can write everything they want, and there are. If you look at your complaints management or your complaints department, you will always hear that there are people who complain a lot, but then again, there are people who are right, who write about things that didn't work, and they will complain anyway. So we said we'd rather have them complain with us. The times where swept complaints under the rug are over. In the time of internet, Twitter, Facebook, and all of the app possibilities that exist, and tablet PCs and so on, you cannot keep information away from the customers. Everything will be disclosed at some point, and I'd rather have it on my own platform, where I have the possibility of answering to it and also of learning from my customers, so that I can improve the service that I'm rendering. I mean, what's better than doing it directly with your customers. It's always better when your customers point out to you that things don't work, and then you have to, start a rethinking process and optimize the processes, and that's what we're doing. Sometimes there are critical voices, and I don't know any company that's present on the internet that doesn't hear critical things every once in a while. Big companies, small companies, rightly or right or wrong, it's an entirely different factor, but it takes time, it's fun, and it's a learning process. Our brand is very B2B. We sell our product via travel agencies and no direct sales. We only have 5% share of direct sales. Most is done via travel agencies. So we have also a closed group for travel agencies where everything can be posted and commented without being disclosed publicly. So quite a possibility for us to learn, because we all know that complaints should also be seen as an opportunity to improve one's product. It really gives you a good opportunity to do that. Ms. Taylor, you said you've had this Facebook site for a number of years. What were the ideas that you implemented in the beginning to, get the resonance that you wanted? Did you have some sweepstakes or anything? No, what we started to do and what we do continuously is to provide some entertainment. It's a mix of, fun, information, and entertainment. We've made the experience that when you only present the offers and the services, that people tend to lose interest. Once a week we post a special offer, but we also, add a little story to that offer. Sometimes we do have sweepstakes, yes. And we also think when you provide a little bit of entertainment and when you win over by being likable, you don't win large masses of fans, but you win over the right fans. When you do that regularly or, hand out vouchers, something like that, you really have the hunters and collectors, people who want to win a voucher and then they leave again. But we say we want to have a lot of likes, we want to have a lot of fans, but real fans, real likes, and not those who, just sweep in and out. So it's a mix of entertainment, information, and the occasional giveaway. But so far, we have never really spent a lot of money on it. Just small things that we are doing, and it was fun. We've established the social media suite for quite a while ago, and we train the travel agencies who approach us with the same fears and worries, and they say, oh, now what will we do when, I'm approached by one of these shit storms? And we always tell them during our training session that it is important to answer. And we also communicate that the customers have to become excited about us via this channel. It's not so much about selling products, it's about establishing a level of excitement. And we always tell them, start with the customers that you already have. Start with your loyal customers, with your existing customers, and try to get them excited via this new channel. This includes things like sweepstakes, special offers, information, but you need to again and again excite the customer and create loyalty, because they are the customers who will then speak about it and will discuss with their friends who might possibly become new customers. But it's important to start with the existing customer base. That is quite nice. Customer retention. How can customers be more, how can they become excited? Do travel operators or tour operators, travel agencies need customer relationship managements? Absolutely, yes. We need customer relationship management systems. We already said in our introductory statement that it's not so much about acquiring new customers. It's a great tool to exchange information. Traveling is not a topic that you do 5 times a year with a travel agent. So for us, it's important to remain in dialogue with the customers and to be able to inspire the customer again and again, give them access to new ideas and inspirations so that they continue to think of traveling, but always the combination of traveling and us. We've made this experience for 18 months now. We've seen what the customers are really interested in a dialogue with us as a tour operator, and it really is access to exclusive information, brand new information, sometimes access to things that you cannot buy just around the corner or are sometimes limited. And when you do that, you really have a very nice dialogue that is being kicked off. If I hadn't introduced this tool 18 months ago, a very important part of product development would be missing. I also would learn less about the development of our customers. Market research on the topic of customer behavior is something that we don't have a lot. Do you agree, Ms. Meier? Because you also make your money with luxury travels. Yes, it's important to find out what customers want. And this only works when you have retention programs, when you communicate on a regular basis. And in our case, we also have the possibility of including that information into the programs that we have. A company that has been around for 40 years still has to learn new things, and sometimes we travel experts are wrong. We have an idea on what customers want, but in reality they want something else. So that's quite helpful as well. And it also helps us because we can really be very selective and provide tailor-made products for our customers. We're not that present in this modern world, and we've learned that dialogue marketing is very important for us, and customers very well appreciate it when we say we have a type of profile, not the big in-depth profile where all information is stored, but a profile where you, based on the travel behavior the customer has shown on his trips with Windrose, we can ask the customers personally what else they want, and then their familiar situation sometimes changes. They retire, their wishes change, and all of this is registered, and we can communicate with the customers, and they appreciate it. They tell us thank you. There's such a broad range of different types of travels now, and it's becoming more and more difficult for customers to find the adequate tailor-made trip with this plethora of trips that can be booked. And as Kirsten said, this things that you cannot buy just around a corner. We, for example, have the 2 years ago we had an exclusive trip to Hong Kong and Tokyo with the famous chef Tim Raue from Berlin, and it was a culinary trip, and that's something special. If you want to spend some time in two fascinating metropolises with a Michelin star chef, then this is a very special thing. It was limited to 12 people, and the question is, where do you find these 12 people? You cannot, start a huge campaign because that would be too much. So what we did was we looked around in our customer base and tried to find out who this would be appropriate for, and the customers liked it. They were happy that this information existed, and it is important to have this information and to selectively pass it on to the customers.
Now, what would you say if I formulated the theory that if the quality of your product is right, as for example, the offer, the trips actually are attractive, and that the price is right, that this generates automatically a kind of customer relationship that you do not really need to manage if the customer is convinced? Don't you need to do anything any longer then, or would you say that every 2 years at least you have to personally approach them, especially in the luxury segment? Well, people actually expect that from us. If we just were to say, okay, quality was all right, people were satisfied, we would not need a feedback, I think people would be disappointed. So you try to stick close to your customer. Well, now you may imagine that we send our customers 7 emails a week asking them how they were, and the last trip that they booked with Windrose was 3 years ago. Well, this is of course something that we don't do, but the increased volume of information that we have on our customers allows us to actually send emails in a very targeted fashion. So this is also a benefit of customer relationship management systems, that you don't have to just spread the same kind of information to a plethora of customers. Of course, we also have customers who say, we do not really want to get any mailings from you. If whenever we have a wish, then we will contact you. And I think that's okay too. It's up to the customer to decide that. How do you do that, Ms. Taylor? Well, I already told you that we only have 5% of direct sales. The customers, just appreciate the fact that we have specific activities over specific travel agencies, and we announce these through targeted campaigns. You just said that if the product is right, then you wouldn't need to do anything for your customers. Well, that would be very beautiful. Well, what I said was, okay, if the product is right, the price is right, that the customer could perhaps automatically just come back to you. Well, that would be nice. If in other countries, for example, you only have 2 operators, then the customers need to actually approach these operators. But if you compare youth tourism today, for example, with the situation back in the old Democratic Republic of Germany, the former Eastern German state, then of course the difference becomes apparent. Our competitors are doing a good job. They've got good products, and that also keeps you busy, and competition is always good for business too, and so. As my colleague, Ms. Meier, just pointed out, it's important not to just bombard your customers because they would, lose interest then. But what we are trying to do is we offer a combination. We've got, Facebook and Twitter, but this, of course, does not replace the traditional communication channels. It's just an amendment. It's complementary. And then we've got the traditional offers, of course. We've got our newsletter, by snail mail too, and then we've got the road shows, we've got information, trips for our customers, and as we also offer things as a virtual operator, so to speak, we don't even have a catalog. Most of our competitors have very nice catalogs that you can find in the travel agencies, and there the customers get to see the names and the brands of these operators, and we have a virtual approach, and that is why we need to take the right measures in order to convey the idea that we are also a physically existent operator. You just said that you do not only use Twitter and Facebook, and that you think that personal contact is very important. And Ms. Garcia, I would like to know, how important is that kind of personal contact, especially in times where you get newsletters by all kinds of tour operators, cruise operators, what have you. How would you think, how important is personal contact? I think it is because of this that personal contact is all the more important. We can really say that people are overwhelmed by all these different stimuli that they receive, and we have to actually try and take out some of the complexity. We have to make our customers understandable offers that are relevant, as I already tried to point out at the beginning, that are actually specifically dovetailed to the needs of our customers. What are the strengths and the weaknesses? Where would you say have your future potential that you can tap into without, turning off your customers? Well, I think that the customers expect the operators, the agencies, that is, they expect from us a different kind of CRM activity. I think that they want to determine themselves how much information they want to make available on themselves as persons, and they also want to determine what kind of trips they would like to undertake. Our customers travel multiple times a year. Perhaps they want to book a different trip in the fall, or, in springtime during the Easter season, they may be looking for the sun. And, of course, your offers need to, actually pick that up and take that into account in order to retain your customers. And I think that customer loyalty can only be brought about by actually accompanying your customers, not just in the beginning by making a specific offer, but, throughout the duration of the travel, and throughout the whole process of the customer journey, as it's called, and that you actually are by their side even during the inspirational phase, that you can always be approached, that you can also offer them support during the booking phase, and even before the trip starts, that you always offer the right kind of relevant information. Then during the trip itself, you should be available. And afterwards, you should also be able to absorb some of their impressions, and use the feedback that they have to offer for your own organization in order to be better prepared for their next trip, and then you can create and maintain that kind of consistency. And we already said that human contact, the personal contact, is very important. It doesn't always need to be face-to-face or within the rooms of a travel agency. It could be through different channels, via the phone, for example, but it is very important. So the customer actually expects an individualized, dovetailed product. Ms. Meier, from what point on are your customers, something like loyal customers? Is it after one trip, 10 trips? Well, our regular customers are defined as customers who did 3 trips over a time frame of 2 years. And what would you say, Mrs. Feld-Türkis? Well, just the same. And Ms. Meier, what would you say? Ms. Taylor? Well, we only have very few regular customers because we are such a young company, but we currently say that every customer who booked 2 trips with our company is a regular customer. Now we, of course, have to say how we will use that rule after 10 years of existence. And who did define these rules in your companies? Now, when we repositioned our brand, we tried to cluster our customer data, and we tried to look into the different groups of customers. When you, for example, look at specific revenue thresholds, turnover thresholds, or the frequency of trips that were booked with us, and we used 2 dimensions. So one was turnover that we generate with the help of this customer in a specific time frame, 1 year, for example, and how frequently do they actually undertake trips. And this does not always correspond. You've got customers who spent lots of money in 1 year and then have a break of 2 years. Others are rather more regular in their booking behavior. So we also use a CRM tool that we introduced, a database that is also very important in order to make our controlling mechanisms transparent, because you no longer use, physical files, but you've got the technical support that really makes you or enables you to look at what kind of data you can use in what ways. We've got a customer club, for example, with 4,000 members, and my objective is not to one day have 20,000 customers, because this would be a loss of exclusivity. And then there is also this nice aspect of gratification, price rebates. Every customer is longing for a price rebate. It's not really about the overall cost of the trip, but the level of rebate that they get granted. And what are your experiences? Ms. Meier, well, I can't really confirm that. It's not the expectation of our customers to get a rebate, but if or when they book for the 3rd or 4th time, for example, that they expect an update in the hotel room category, for example, as a soft factor, and that they feel like we are perceiving the customer as a person really with our whole complexities. So I don't really think that the customers are expecting specific rebates, 3 to 5% or anything. Ms. Rodriguez, what are your experiences concerning the online sector in this subject that I just mentioned? That would be rebates and so forth. Well, we time and again find out, and this is a major point of criticism frequently, that most systems use pricing really as the basis of orientation, and that price-sensitive customers, of course, use this. But what we also find out is that the operators no longer want us to just, form segments according to price, but also according to other quality characteristics. And we try to point these out, and we try to actually make the right choice for the customer, or help the customer make the right choice, the relevant choice, by offering them the comprehensive information, not just the price. Another very important aspect, I think, is that of data protection. All of you probably can say something on that. What is, how do tour operators, for example, deal with this aspect? For example, if you haven't booked a trip for 10 years, do you delete the data? You said that you are only around, or have been around since 2009. Perhaps the others could say something. Well, yes, of course we do that. It doesn't even take 10 years. If a customer hasn't booked anything for 5 or 6 years, we delete the customer data. And, even if a customer who's a regular customer who just recently contacted us, and if they tell us that they don't want to receive any communication from us, or that we, save their contact data, then we don't do that, But, of course, in order to do online bookings, it's not really possible to do online bookings because it's so complex. So the customers do not really have to give us their data if they don't want to. And so they are not really visible in our structures. And of course, this is an advantage due to the specializations that we have, but we are very careful about that. And we also found out that the customers offer a lot more information voluntarily nowadays. After the trips, for example, we send out a questionnaire asking them how well they like the trip. And we've got a return quota of more than 40%, which is excellent. The customers tell us, no, next time this should be changed, this should be different. You know, the segment that we are working in, and this just corresponds to what you just said, the customers, you would assume that the customers wouldn't want to offer their profile, but they voluntarily offer a whole lot more information, but they also expect us to keep these within the customer data set, only to be used for the next trip in order to improve the counseling and the advice for the booking. So it's not anonymous. People actually tell you their address when they do the booking. Well, depends really. You can do it anonymously, but as we have small groups and as we also want to send out our questionnaire to the customers, we've got their address data. We've got direct distribution, and we are also present in travel agencies, so we've got the customer addresses. But whenever we get a booking through a travel agent, then, for example, we ask the travel agents whether we should send the customer the question directly or whether it should be done via the travel agency. So we are very sensitive to the subject. But if need be, for the next booking, you would actually come back to these data or to the questions that they filled in the questionnaire. And what are the reactions to that? Well, people react rather positively to it, you know, and this goes back to what I already mentioned, you know, that we are then able to make better and improved dovetailed offers. They don't say, oh my God, it's another call from the travel agent or from the operator or another letter asking about a trip that you intended to book some 2 years ago to Africa. Then perhaps some customers say, oh no, this is rather too aggressive in terms of sales and promotion for me. But most of the customers say, oh, it's so nice to know that you remember us, and they you know, feel like they're being treated especially because you serve as a scout and as a guide, really, in this jungle of information. Ms. Feld-Türkis, how long do you actually store the customer data? Well, we are part of a major company, so we've got very, very strict regulations concerning data protection. You know, we've got the PCI-DSS tool, for example, for the bookings with the help of credit cards. You know, we've got also 3, 4, 5-page long data protection regulations that the customers have to actually sign before we are allowed to contact them. But many customers are doing this quite consciously, just as it was described here, so that customers, for example, leave their address at the travel agency and they only pass along the address with the consent of the customers. So whenever we want to contact the customers, we have had their informed consent beforehand. Every 5 years, we regularly delete all customer data. And of course, on the other hand, we also have customers approaching us, telling us that they no longer want to receive any material from us. And then, of course, we also delete their data. I would like to add something to what we've just heard. It is a very interesting subject, you know. Whenever you enter into a dialogue with your customer, you know, offer the customer to, for example, send you a reply, and there is always so much concern about overtaxing the customer, you know, that they might say, okay, leave me alone after having received 2 letters. But my experience is that after, you know, receiving a customer letter, if you don't react to it, that they are then disappointed. You know, you have to react to it. And we, for example, introduced a guest questionnaire for the brand after some 3 years ago, and we said in the beginning we have to do this absolutely anonymously, you know, and everything that we receive was anonymized, and they had you know, a full page disclaiming that they actually will be treated anonymously and confidentially. But there were so many customers who then, in a handwritten letter, told us their personal details and said that they would like to be contacted again. Now, we prepared a form to fill out for that because customers didn't really place that much of an emphasis on data protection. But of course, the TUI Deutschland GmbH is also part of your company. But what about you, Ms. Taylor? The IT security and safety, can it be actually guaranteed that no one would ever hack into your databases? Well, we are not part of TUI. But of course, there are also other independent institutions, like for example, TÜV Süddeutschland, which is a technical safety standard authority, and we also have a data protection commissioner who is not part of our company. He's an external expert, and we also have lawyers who counsel us on the issue of data protection, and we also have certificates on service and quality, and so we've got the whole process managed. So, and we've got all the rules and regulations that we have to stick to, and we are being checked and reviewed every 6 months. We've got our own servers and the necessary software. And we do not actually write letters to our customers, because the customers are not our customers. They are customers of travel agencies, and I think it is the task of the travel agencies to contact these customers. Those that we write to are our travel agents who actually said that they are willing to receive our newsletters or our information on specific trips and travels. And so we only write to these people, and only to 5% of our customers who expressly said that they would like to receive the newsletter get the newsletter. The others just can, are not being touched, And data mining, do you think that this can be done already? Well, data mining means that you extract from a huge amount of data some relevant and valuable data in order to analyze them, and I think that we could do this for Amadeus. And it's also part of our core business. We've been doing this for years, actually. And we just currently with a view to the last product that came out of our headquarters, and its featured results, is what it's called, and we analyze flight data, and we do not only look at the prices or the flights according to takeoff and landing times, but we also look at which flight was the most frequently booked flight, the shortest flight. So we add a lot more of information than we would have done that in the past in our standard procedures, and then we analyze these in only fragments of seconds. While a request is being posted into the system, we add these information on top. So data processing is something that we are doing big style, and we also founded a new business unit for this purpose. We really did a lot, especially in the aviation field. We also bought air economy, and for the tourist data, we got the travel intelligence program from Traveltainment, where we can analyze very valuable data that actually help and show us what the developments are, what the trends are, which flights are being booked most frequently, so that we can use these in order to actually direct the product flow. Are there other data sources that can be used for your customer retention or customer relationship management system? Well, flight data would be one example. This is the example that I just gave you. And then travel intelligence, and Traveltainment, I already mentioned these. I think that I exhaustively and indirectly answered your question. Well, but apart from what you just mentioned, are there other sources for your segment? Do you perhaps have another example of which you would say, okay, this is something that we could use very well? Well, I would like to come back to customer data. This is where we took off in this discussion. What we are currently working on is a so-called travel page. So that is, we try to really accompany the customer all through the customer journey. You just talked about, getting a contact with your customer, and we actually want to support this with the right information technologies so that the operators or the travel agencies can really use all the different channels, all the different devices in order to get into contact with their customers. Well, apart from this subject, something that may be a concern to many companies is the question of whether it is harder or easier today to actually get something like a customer relationship going. if you compare it to a situation 10 years ago. Well, 10 years ago, I think for a company like Windrose, it's become harder because we have to really define our position. And what used to be easier in the overall world of traveling and tourism was that back then we had specialists working with regular customers, but it's also become harder to point out the differences, to make understandable why such a trip would cost 5,000 euros today, because we are all being driven by prices, or rather the customers are being driven by the different prices. And sometimes we just suffer because customers say, okay, this is just way too expensive, I can get this for less. So the price is one of the decisive factors for decision-making, which made it harder. But of course, there are also factors that make it easier, like today's technology. We've got tools that we can use, or that you are using here, my colleagues on stage, and things that, are being done today. In 10 years ago or 20 years ago were done with physical paper files, and so it was not really possible to pick out 10 specific customers to give them a specialized offer for a South Africa trip. Whereas the people who actually pay attention to the price, this is a relatively small percentage because you're working in the luxury segment. Well, yes, of course, but the question is, what the benefit would be for us to be present on the web. Everyone can present themselves on the web. I can offer the travel content or tourism content, and if you actually say that we also announce the relatively high price, then you lose lots of customers right away because they don't really read the details. They just see the high price. But this, of course, does not, affect the core of customers that we have at Windrose. If they really want to have a lifetime travel experience, then we have got the necessary base of customers. But if you want to find new customers, then the niche within which we're operating is, a place where it's become a little harder to operate, because so many people in Germany only think of, saving a buck when it comes to traveling. Not only traveling, people are not that stingy any longer as they used to be in the past, but, tour operators, they want to, for example, also offer the customers more detailed information on the travel and the trips, and not just the price. It's about the quality of the rooms. Is it, facing the parking lot, or is it one of the upper stories of the hotel? If you only see the price, you don't get the full image, and you don't really get the full picture. And this is somewhat more difficult for us to explain that. Ms. Feld-Türkis, can you confirm that, or are your experiences different compared to 10 years ago? Well, customer retention 10 years ago was just, based on word of mouth. So it was either through direct contact of the travel agents, and we didn't really contact our customers directly that much, as operators. But I think that it's become so much more professionalized today. You've got instruments in order to do this professionally, especially if you are actively sending out a message. Then you have to follow up on that, process the information that you receive. And otherwise, I can only confirm that, the customers today have a degree of transparency that is unparalleled. That is a challenge. But on the other hand, it also, is a kind of exhortation for you to actually make a stance and, define your position in the niche. And you also now have to be more convincing when telling the customers about the advantages of your product. And this is, I think, the future, that you have to take on the customer's perspective for your products. And this led to a change of paradigms in the industry, too. It was not just, producing a product and presenting it, and then people will buy it, But today, we have a different kind of perspective, We know that out there is a huge community of customers with different needs, and it is our task to find out which customers fit our profile. And we have to find out with which customers we can work on an economically viable basis and try to make them satisfied, But this is a high-tech, a high-touch subject. Ms. Rodriguez, would you say that that there is a kind of contradiction going on here? Well, I don't think that it's all that contradictory. Technology, as you just mentioned, gives you the edge. You can get this, high touch is what you called it. And I just had to smile because, 10 years ago, when we're using physical paper files, you also, wrote down the hobbies, for example, of people's. But, people develop, and perhaps 10 years later, they do no longer have the same kind of characteristics or hobbies, for example. And I think that we are really better in terms of the systems that we're using today. We can very dynamically not only record these data, but also then adapt them later on. And as I'm permanently able to feed information into the system, I can, of course, also use these data whenever I want to contact the customer, no matter which channel I'm using. Now we would, of course, like to give the audience the opportunity to formulate questions. Should you have questions, please do not hesitate to just raise your hand or stand up. But please use your microphone. My charming colleague is already waiting for your questions. Otherwise, you can, of course, also post your questions via email. I've got 2 questions to Jasmin Taylor, for example, concerning customer expectations. If you get a request on Facebook, how quickly do you have to react? Is it important to be online and on Facebook 24/7, or would it be okay to just have regular office hours in order to answer these requests? And then another question to all of you. Do you use Facebook for the purpose of data mining? Because there are so many personal data posted on Facebook, personal preferences and so forth. Have you ever thought about using Facebook in order to get a better impression of who your customers are? Okay, let's perhaps first of all answer the first question. Thank you, Mr. Diggadai, by the way. Ms. Taylor, the first question went to you. Well, on Facebook, I've got a personal page where I do some customer relation management, vis-a-vis the travel agents, the owners of travel agencies, and it really is my personal claim, it's my personal ambition to answer as quickly as possible. Of course, if someone writes to you Sunday at midnight and I'm not online, then of course I'm not going to answer it right away. But should I happen to be online at that point in time, I would answer right away. Concerning our distribution group, we've got regular office hours, and within this time frame, we've got a number of colleagues who are responsible for doing that, and as long as they are then on the job, that is from Monday to Friday in our agency, up until 6 o'clock in the evening, and our customer service is open until 8 o'clock in the evening. Otherwise, we open up at 9 o'clock again. That's when we would then answer at the latest, no matter what channel you'd be using. But we don't have night shifts in our company in order to be able to answer Facebook requests on weekends and during the night times. Now, outside of our office hours, our colleagues and our marketing manager and I myself, we just do that whenever we find the time and whenever we happen to be online. But, of course, it's nice to be able to answer requests even if they are being posted at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening. When I'm online, I answer these requests, and I will not, tell them to wait until the next day at 9 in the morning. Of course, I only answer if I'm knowledgeable about the question. And what about you? Do you use Facebook privately? Do you look at the customer profiles and at what they expose? Ms. Rodriguez, you are somewhat more active on the internet. Well, yes, I've got a private Facebook account, but I would like to come back to the second question that was asked here. You do not actually have to do data mining. You can do this also in a playful manner. You can get these kinds of information in a rather more playful manner. You can, for example, post a game online. And we've got, for example, the Reise-Ich, as we call it, where you can actually, in a playful manner, gather information about your customers, and where you can also ask your customers whether they would like to disclose these data. So you can do this legally in a very transparent fashion, and then you can use these data later on. And the other thing is we did an analysis, especially with a focus on the group of young travelers between the ages of 18 and 25, who are very important for the future of our business and also for you. And we found out that for them, it's no longer really that critical to, disclose these kinds of personal data. Privacy, more than 25% do not even have any kind of restrictions on Facebook, and that is something that's quite natural for them. Well, perhaps it's also a lack of knowledge. Perhaps they don't even know that their data are accessible for everyone. especially among the elderly. Well, but within Facebook, you get these kinds of warnings time and again. There are blogs, there is information that you can share through Facebook and so on and so forth. So I think that your average Facebook user, no matter how young they are being told about these data protection issues time and again. So I don't think that it's a lack of knowledge, really. Well, I'd like to say something about this. I sometimes have the impression that people in generally try to vile Facebook as they did with the internet in general back in the 90s. I remember a friend of mine back then saying that I will never get an internet access in my house because I've got kids. But, you can, disclose as much information as you want to, It's not that Facebook is creating a photo album based on your pictures, publishing it, It's just the kind of information that you disclose. And if you just want to, pry into other people's accounts without posting anything yourself, you can do that too. And you can really do this in a well-dosed fashion. And, And I don't have any kind of special restrictions on my Facebook. Sometimes I've got private pictures posted of my mother, of my sisters. So I'm not really too critical about that because, today the things that you post online, you can basically find all the data on me except for my age. But you can get to know that at the ITB, can't you? No, that was just a joke. No, let's not do that. But it actually is up to you. What kind of information you want to post there. So it's a kind of a personal dialogue, but it's a personal dialogue that everyone can listen to. It's whenever I, write something to Ms. Meier, for example, via Facebook, then everyone else could read that. But of course, if I wrote her a private email, then only her or her secretary could read that. But on Facebook, it would be in the public domain. That's the only difference, But you just talked about high-tech, and unfortunately you did not ask me what I thought about high-tech strategies. I think that, one approach does not really exclude the other one, And if you don't feel like using Facebook, so what then? Let them use the telephone or write emails. That's okay too, So Facebook is fun. I like using Facebook every day. And I've got, many pages that I liked, and I also get, my personal ads, with pink dresses, pink shoes, and I keep asking myself, how do they know that? No, but of course it's personalized. So I think that in only a couple of years' time, we will get these kinds of fully individualized, personalized offers. And of course, if someone knows what I like in terms of food or what I like in terms of dresses or where I would like to spend my holiday and they want to offer me some tips, then voila, let's let them do that. I can only save time. Okay, Ms. Taylor, thank you very much for these very nice closing words. I would like to also thank your colleagues, Ms. Garcia, Rodriguez, Meier, Ms. Taylor, Ms. Feld-Türkis, and I think we can say that both in the simple and the luxury segment, this is a very important issue. And then on the one hand, social media will probably play a bigger role in the future, but personal customer relations will always be very important indeed. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you enjoy the rest of the ITB. And with that, I think I'll hand over to my charming colleague, Mr. Schmidt. Thank you very much, and a big round of applause.